What's up, lore masters? Today we are putting Captain Christopher Pike on trial to determine if his actions in the Discovery episode New Eden were justified. Unfortunately, even the great Pike doesn't understand the Prime Directive, but somehow Burnham does. Let's just get into it. In the Discovery episode New Eden, the crew of the USS Discovery receive an emergency communication from a human colony in the Beta Quadrant. The Federation has not reached this far into space yet, so the fact that humans are colonized on the planet is amazing to say the least, if not impossible. The emergency message makes their situation seem dire, that they are under attack, but a scan of the colony shows that they're fine, and are indeed humans. Same as you would see on the United Earth. Additional scans show that there's no emergency anywhere, no ships. The SOS doesn't make a lot of sense. What is even more confusing is that this colony appears to be pre-industrial. This pre-warp society is currently sending out a message which is more advanced than their abilities. And that message, when analyzed, has been sent for over 200 years before the creation of warp drive. As the crew continue to look into it, it is determined that the people of the colony arrived during the events of World War III on Earth, again 200 years ago. Additionally, these people are speaking what Pike calls quote-unquote Federation standard, before the Federation even existed, which either means that the Federation adopted some specific Earth language, or they learned it without ever being in the Federation. Burnham confirms that the civilization doesn't even have electricity and no advanced technology, no starships. Which is strange, as we find out later they have all kinds of tech down there and that the SOS is somewhat advanced, but we'll assume that she means technology within the Federation standards of advancement. While all of this investigation is going on, Pike says the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard that character say. He states that General Order 1 applies because they are a pre-warp civilization. Unfortunately, the crew decides not to check him for brain damage, given how utterly stupid that is. Add on to that the episode makes you think that basically General Order 1 means that if they are pre-warp, you can't intervene. Except that no, that's not what General Order 1 or the Non-Interference Directive says. It is a hell of a lot more complicated than just ticking a box. In essence, the Prime Directive states that Starfleet personnel are not to interfere in the natural, unassisted development of societies, even if they are well-intentioned. However, what societies were not to be interfered with or contacted varied widely. It wasn't about check marks, it's about determining what is best for both sides. A civilization being pre-warp does not automatically make it ineligible for intervention. It's a large factor, true, but nowhere near the conclusion. We see the different crews in the original series, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and even Voyager determine if they should interfere with the other societies in a variety of scenarios with a variety of integers. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Hell, in the original series and arguably Deep Space Nine, Starfleet directly interferes in the development of a society that is pre-warp. Multiple times. The spirit of the Prime Directive is to prevent the destruction of a civilization and to ensure the safety of the Federation and its citizens. But General Order Number 1 can be co-opted for many reasons, including, but not limited to, if the culture has already been impacted by another outward source, if the culture is not distinct from any of the Federation members, and in some circumstances, if by interfering will save that civilization. But I tell you what, let's take a look at this specific situation. You have a human colony. Human colony. This is not a distinct civilization, at least not at first blush. These people are human, a human colony that was transported away from Earth over 200 years ago. Transported away by an alien influence. We know from the original series, Deep Space Nine and Voyager, that other powers with warp capability interfering is a reason for Starfleet to step in some instances. All of that said, I actually don't disagree with holding to General Order Number 1 for the moment. The last piece we know in this situation for sure is that we don't know everything. In my opinion, all of the evidence currently appears to support that the Prime Directive doesn't apply, or this would be an exception. However, if Pike wanted to be careful about it, then I get that. Not because they are pre-warp, but because this will forever change these people's lives. So for the moment, holding to the Prime Directive, let's do that. Just not for the reason he says. The captain beams down with an away team, pretending to be a part of the culture. Again, at this time, I don't have any issues. I think that gathering information is vital, and instantly wanting to save these people is very folly. The away team, specifically Pike, realizes that the culture has evolved from 200 years ago and are the descendants of the soldiers and civilians from a battle during World War III. They were teleported or transported away to this planet by the Red Angel. Long story, watch the episode. The survivors could not get off the planet, so they decided to start over. They couldn't recover the tech they had, so they had to regress. Additionally, they combined all of their religions into one. At first, I was going to say that the entirety of the people became a theocratic government. Honestly, though, we don't have enough information. You could actually argue it both ways. These people are deeply religious, however, she does state that they don't get a lot of visitors anymore. So I'm not sure if all of the people on the planet are deeply religious or it was this specific town. But, surprise, surprise, Pike really doesn't do enough research, so we'll never know. All of that said though, just looking at this settlement, it does present an interesting problem. The people here are deeply religious, as I've stated, and they believe that everything comes from one specific source, a deity of some form. We even see a debate where Burnham calls her religion science, which whatever, and the response she gets is that everything has a mystical meaning. So at first glance, maybe all of these people are religious and so they should be left to their designs. As both in the real world and Trek shows us, pulling someone out of a religion that may or may not be correct has devastating impacts on that person. However, the problem is further complicated because the away team discovers that the emergency SOS was being transmitted by a man whose family never gave up looking for help. This emergency beacon, this piece of technology, has been kept in the family for over 200 years. And even after all that, Captain Pike still doesn't want to save at least him. Even though someone has requested it, because the civilization is pre-warp, Pike says no. And allow me not to understate it, this is the epitome of stupid to me. So you're telling me when someone who is a different, unique race activates a communication system, they are worthy of being saved, even though it breaks the Prime Directive. A person like, oh, I don't know, let's say Saru. But when a human does it, he's not as important? Okay. I guess what is frustrating here is that with a few tweaks to Christopher Pike, his arguments could make sense. I mean, not the leaving that man behind, that's just stupid, but for the colony as a whole. If I was to rewrite it, here's how I would have done it. Let's say at the beginning you have someone state, "Sir, it's a lost Earth colony. Now we can bring them home." Then you have Christopher Pike jump in and state, "Well, let's settle down. We don't have enough information to know what's going on with these people. It could be our intervention would hurt them. And if you need to have Burnham show how awesome she is, then fine. She can jump in right after." The captain is right. The Prime Directive may apply. We need to determine if they are at a point that they now may have its protection, or we may be able to return them home. We don't know yet. After this scene, you have the away team discover that the entirety of the populace are deeply theocratic, that they believe that technology was a gift from God. You have the crew debate, but ultimately determine that to show these people the truth would be detrimental to them and could lead to devastation overall, so they should be let be. But no, instead we have a captain, the captain of the most important ship in the fleet that decides to go vacationing on a glorified pizza cutter, not understand the intricacies of Starfleet's most important directive. What's even more perplexing is when you look at later in the episode and what occurs with Saru. You know, the true captain of Discovery in my opinion. When it is discovered that there is nuclear fallout surrounding the planet that will devastate everyone on the planet, what does Saru do? He states that a disaster of this magnitude will not happen on Discovery's watch. And you're damn right he's doing the right thing. There is no way those on the ground can detect the Discovery, and it will save all of these people. According to Pike, as a pre-warp civilization, they don't matter. Every one of them should die. It's only the natural, unassisted way of things. And if Pike is right, Saru shouldn't try to save the away team. After all, as Kirk says, Starfleet personnel should be ready to die for the Prime Directive. Luckily for Pike, Saru actually understands the Prime Directive, and thank God for that. Ironically, in all of this, the voice of reason is, wait for it, Michael Burnham. She points out that it's a human colony, that they were brought by an alien force. She looks at the nuance. Though, apparently she learned the wrong lesson from season 1, and so didn't stand up to authority in one of the most justifiable reasons I've ever seen presented to her to stand up to authority. But that's a rant for another time. And after all of this, we ultimately see Christopher Pike break his own word. He gives a power cell to the man who had sent the SOS, altering the future of the civilization he was so worried about impacting. So here's the thing we have to ask ourselves about Christopher Pike on trial. Was he right in instituting the Prime Directive upon this lost colony of Earth? In my opinion, after everything I've stated before, I actually agree. He did the right thing for the wrong reason. It's not that these people shouldn't be shown the truth because they are pre-warp. They shouldn't be shown the truth because they aren't ready. If we believe that this town is representative of the whole, they are now a deeply religious and theocratic culture that doesn't understand the difference between technology and God. And I'm not putting religion down. I'm not saying that because they are religious, they've regressed. It's that their religion would hold them back from understanding what is occurring. If there are people on that planet that can see the forest for the trees, if you'll allow me to say that, maybe we should offer them a way home. But for the rest of the people, I don't think right now we should. Pike's understanding of the Prime Directive is startling, and it's dangerous. But at least in this instance, he made the right choice. But those are my thoughts. What are yours? As always, guys, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and remember, all of our lives are a story. Make yours a good one.